Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Side Dish. We're doing something a little different today. We're going to go a little bit more deep dive and technical than we normally do. So this will be a little bit shot, a little different. It won't be as much back and forth. But I figured we've done a lot of bread in different varieties and things like that. And we got a request to sort of go through it in a more how-to, step-by-step manner. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to make a sandwich bread, which is, you know, a go-to white bread with a nice crust on it. And so as we get moving here, I'm going to sort of be talking over what's happening, but the camera is going to be more aimed at accoutrement for baking bread. You know, we've got a fat in the butter right here. We've got sugar, we've got yeast, and we've got salt. And then we have up here, we're going to have a quarter cup of whole milk and a cup of water. And I've heated this to 110 degrees-ish, and I've melted the butter. So the reason we do sort of these things ahead of time is we want the dough to be of a certain temperature so that the yeast this is instant yeast, by the way. You could use active dry, but you would need to proof it first to get it back and clear that coating that's on that yeast, and it comes back to life. I'm going to be using a mixer for this, a stand mixer, but you could do this all by hand and knead it out. Adjusting the times, you'll need it in there. So the first thing that we're going to want to do in this setup here is we're going to prepare everything. We're going to whisk the sugar and this and the warm water and milk together. Oops, almost dropped that. So I'm just adding that in there, and it's gonna help dissolve a little bit. And I'm just gonna use this little stir stick that I was using before. Really, it's not a ton of sugar. It's only 2 teaspoons of sugar. And so, you know, I'm making sure that is getting nice and dissolved. The reason we're doing that is we're kind of letting this sit for a few minutes, and we're going to actually now add the yeast as well. Again, it's instant yeast. You don't need to proof this, you know, so you need to make sure that the yeast is just in here. And it's just to mix it together in terms of like starting the process off. Again, that's why the temperatures of the milk and the water is important. If it was lower than that, then it's going to take longer to proof, or if it doesn't proof at all, because you know the sugars and the yeast itself need a certain temperature to experience the basically coming back to life. So I'm just I should have gotten this out, but I've got my little mixer, like just a coffee stir, and I like to use this because I think it incorporates into the dough or into the water, the yeast in there a little bit better. And just go around the sides here, and any of this sort of yeast that's stuck to the sides, you're going to want to get back down into there. And again, kind of use the heat of the milk to sort of help you go around the sides. Now that that's in there, really at this point, you can add this to the bowl of your mixer. Again, I have a stand mixer here that I will show you. So that's what we're going to be mixing it in, and I'm going to go back to this once we get everything kind of in here. So I'm going to just add this in here. Let me get a spatula because that'll help us get this out. So again, we want to get this in here. Again, we're not doing this to proof the bread. So again, proofing is just getting a active dry yeast into this and letting it bloom, letting it proof so that the yeast is going to eat that sugar, it's going to multiply, and it's going to start to froth because it's releasing gases as it eats that sugar. So you're going to let this sit here. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna just go over this. So now I've also got this butter. And the butter is important. I've melted it because it's going to incorporate in. If you were using something like olive oil, again, it's in liquid form, and it's just how it adds to the bread itself. So it's sort of like when we're talking about like when we cream butter for cookies, or if we melt it and we get a kind of a different a texturalness to it. And this is what we're doing with this. So because this is also one, I'm going to add this to this, and all I'm really doing is making sure that this is getting mixed up. And the real technical part of this recipe in my mind is that we're going to add that sugar, and I'm sorry, add that flour 1 cup at a time to sort of bring it together. And we're going to be putting, and that butter that we just put in there was 4 tablespoons melted. And then we, like I said, we had 2 1/4 teaspoons of the cat really wants to be a part of this video. And so we're going to add the salt as well. And then, like I said, 2 1/4 teaspoons of the yeast. And I'm going to spread that around. And then what I'm actually going to do here for everything is, I think we can still see that in my big hands. And I'm just going to kind of mix that up a little bit. This is not doing anything. I'm not adding air. I'm not adding anything other than kind of mixing the salt and helping it dissolve and anything else. So that's pretty much all we need. So for I've got my flour here. Now I've got 4 cups here, and I'm doing that because we need to show what's going to happen here when we kind of do this, because we're not weighing this out. Now, could you weigh all of this out? Yes. We're not doing it in this case. Again, the recipe I'm using isn't using the weight. So results can vary. Again, with baking, you want to make sure that if your dough is a little drier than the texture you're looking for, then go ahead and add a little bit more liquid. If it's drier, or if it's wetter, then add a little bit more flour. I mean, you got to use your eyes as well as your other senses and sort of what the recipe is saying here. And so with that in mind, I've got my bench scraper, and I'm just going to scrape this down, and I'm going to add 1 cup of this to this flour. And I'm doing that to just sort of make almost batter consistency, because again, the amount of liquid we have in here versus the amount of flour at the moment is more, it's going to be batter-like. And again, I want to do this because then you're going to incorporate, with the rest of the flour going in, it's going to incorporate better. So we're just going to let that go. And then while it's going, I'm going to measure out here the other cup that I need. And then again, I'm gonna mound this on here and make sure that when I scrape it, it's even with the top of that cup. And I'm just going to slowly add this in here. It'll start to go in and again mix in. And this is where our dough is going to start to come together, okay? So we're going to make sure that we have that going on, and let that mix. And so we'll go ahead and let that mix for a few minutes, and I just want this to come together. And sort of, I'm going to knock the sides down. You've got your spatula. Don't be afraid to use it in here. It's kind of going to be your friend to scrape down some of these sides and start to incorporate that flour, because it's going to knock it up against it. The other thing, and I'm going to stop this so you can see this, because this is always happening to me. See, we always get flour on the top here. Now, as we speed it up and when we're in the kneading mode of this, you're gonna knock most of it off, usually. But I don't really trust that. So I'm also gonna take this opportunity while the thing is stopped, just sort of, again, scrape down the sides. Don't worry if it looks like it's sticking. That's not a problem overall, right? it's gonna get, once it gets everything started to incorporate, again, and I'm only got my mixer on like stir or 2, the lowest setting it has on here. And I'm just kind of letting it do its thing. But you can start to see that as the flour hydrates, and that's just taking on that moisture from our liquids that we had here, that it's gonna get stickier. And the more sticky it gets, basically it's gonna start to cling, and all of this flour that's on the side is gonna get more incorporated, and you're gonna see it thicken up. And again, while this is happening, I wanna go ahead and get my 3rd cup here. And I want to, again, I'm just filling this up. Now remember that I've got extra here, and that's fine because we're going to need that extra to do when we roll it out and get to that portion of this. So I feel comfortable at this point sort of adding, even though that it's not fully incorporated in here. I think you can kind of see that on this side here. You can't see my fat finger, I'm going the wrong way. You can see that down here there is flour. So again, add it. I'm gonna add about that much, and you'll see this, when this starts to come together, it's gonna come together pretty quick. Now, the 1/4 cup, we are going to sort of let this come together. Now I've sped this up just a little bit to sort of start the mixture motion up. I didn't go very high. I'm sort of between the 2 and the 4 setting, which you can do. You know, if you can go half settings, but if you go up, that's what it's going to look like. So you want to kind of keep it slow. And again, I'm just adding a little. You can see here, I'm adding half of that at a time because I don't want the flour to fly up and go everywhere. That's the biggest thing we've got going on here. Is this, sort of baking this is about control and making sure that you are not going to kind of get covered in flour yourself. If you were doing this in a bowl like this, you'd have your flour in one bowl and a bigger mixing bowl, and you would sort of be mixing this by hand until it became shaggy. And that's just where it's sort of just starting to come together as a dough, and it's not fully hydrated, but you can take it out, get all the bits that are stuck inside of the bowl here and incorporate it, and then you're going to start to knead it. We're not going to do that with this. I'm not very good at, I'll just admit it, I'm not very good at hand mixing and or hand kneading. I get tired, I get bored, I don't do it long enough. So I just have better consistency and better bread by doing it with the mixer. I mean, I have 2 of them. One I still need to get fixed, but and again, this is mixing, this is hydrating. And once I get done all of this in here, and you're gonna start to see, again, it's really starting to get to that level of, oh look, against here where it's starting, the flour is, it's starting, the stickiness and the looser bits are starting to grab that flour, exactly what we wanna see. So that is very important to look, you know, when you see it down here, that's what you're looking for, is that little bit. When I started baking bread for the first time, I wasn't patient enough. I didn't know what to look for. And bread is one of those things to me, is that you sort of need to get a feel for it. Your first few loaves, your first few bowls, those things, they're not gonna be perfect. But it's like any skill set, you're gonna get better at it as you do it more and more, and learn from your mistakes. What did the dough feel like? What was it supposed to look like? How was there a sheen to the dough? So I mean, it's all of these things that you would, you know, kind of, you're learning to, I don't know, learning to ski or something like that. You don't just get on a pair of skis and, you know, be the best at it. So I turned it down a little bit because I did get a little bit of flour snow popping out of it, which is fine. But I am going to take this opportunity again to, go here. I'm going to pull that up, just kind of get out of the way. And any of these kind of really loose bits of flour that are higher up, I'm just going to push down. And you see that term used, scraping the bowl, a lot, right? So, you know, that's That's all it means, is you're just getting in there and kind of getting it down so that the stuff that needs to be where it isn't, it gets to where it is, I guess is the best way to put that. So again, I'm gonna lock this up because it'll jump up. You can do it, and I've baked plenty of times without having that locked, but it's better when you do. So instantaneously, you can already see that is starting to look like dough. There's gluten being formed, and this is sort of what, you're not looking for those vacuous holes that you would get in sourdough. Now what you're looking for is, this is gonna be a tighter crumb. So I'm gonna take this quarter cup that I've got here, and again, like I said, I got extra in here, but I'm gonna take and get this quarter cup. Because as you can see, that's still pretty sticky looking, okay? And so I'm just gonna add a little bit. What I'm looking for this to start doing is form, instead of having those strands where it's pulled, like kind of one continuous piece like stuck to the sides, I want the dough to be sticky and tacky, but not like where if I were to pull this out before kneading, which I wouldn't really do, I want it to start to pull away from the sides. That means that you're getting enough gluten development that the dough is sticking together. Now, do I know, this is why I'm using, if we were weighing this, we'd probably have better results right away. So if you can find recipes that have the weight aspect to it, then that's what you're gonna wanna do, right? You wanna have that so that you can basically have more accurate weight. And again, we kind of demonstrated what that actually looks like in terms of how much is actually in it. So I'm going to turn this up, because the other thing that we have to get going here is we need gluten development to happen, because as gluten development happens, it's going to again become a stronger dough, form a cohesive ball, and how it's sticking to the bottom here, and I'll move you guys in a little bit here, that is exactly kind of what it's supposed to do. It will eventually, and so what I've got, I've got my flour here. They would say measure out another quarter cup, but I don't play it by those rules. And I sort of just take a pinch, and I'm gonna add a pinch. Because again, we just want to get it to a point that it is pulling apart, but also forming a cohesive ball. And I don't think that we got there with what we put in. So I'm sort of just adding this in to get us to the consistency that I'm looking for. And even just adding pinches at a time, you'll start to see that is going to be enough to sort of pull it together. In the end, again, I've said this before when we've been making other things or baking in the past, is I want to be present in what's happening sort of with this process, okay? I want to see it, I want to be able to look at it. I need to use my eyes, but I also need to use, does it smell like bread? Is it good hydration? Does it look like I think it should look? And again, some of this stuff comes from practice. And again, you're gonna have to have a few bricks before you get to a consistency you like. And so again, I'm just gonna add a couple of these heavier ones at a time now. And this was much looser than I anticipated it. So, we did 3 cups, and that's what we're supposed to do. But again, we're different elevation, different hydration levels. We're gonna get to the point here, and I bet you by the time I'm all said and done, I've probably got more like 3.5 cups in here, maybe 3 3/4. But I want to make sure that I'm doing this correctly, and as a how-to of this, I want to teach you guys also to sort of what to look for and what it's going to look like. Because again, you can already see by I'm getting to a point now, and it's starting to pull away. Now I'm gonna let that go because what I need to do now is I want this to sort of go for about, oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. And so I'm gonna turn on a timer over here in 6 minutes. And I'm just gonna let this sort of knead away here. And while this is doing this, you know, we'll just sort of let you watch that and see what happens. Now this is walking away, so I'm gonna stand here and watch as well. So adding a little bit of flour, you know. Again, I want to let this gluten development do a lot of the work, but at the same time, and you can already see if you know, from how wet and pulling it, sticking to the sides it was, you know, we're now actually getting to that point where we're still getting some sticking, but it's pulling away more than it's sticking, and that's, again, that's that gluten development that's happening. You want a tight crumb here, but you know, when we're talking about a gluten-free alternative to this, is more going to be like cakey in texture instead of having a soft, sort of pillowy texture, which is what we're kind of going for. Now, I'm using smaller pinches at this point, and I can already tell like that's the right move. So I can see, if you can see the very bottom down here, which I'll pull it in a little bit, you can see that bottom sort of pulling away a little bit as well. And again, just ever so slightly adding, you know, just not even a half a teaspoon at a time right now. It's still going to be plenty a consistency of tacky or moist that you want it to be. So don't be afraid to sort of add teeny tiny bits at a time until you get what you want. We got about 3 minutes to go, and I think, you know, I think it's about where I want it to be. It's pulling more and more away from the bottom. There's only going to be a little bit of it. So we'll just let that be. And I might speed this up a little bit, and then add a voiceover afterwards. I don't know, I've never done one of those, so we'll see. It's all about experimenting. I was thinking we could call this like a closer look with side dish, or a side dish closer look, and you know, explore all this together. If you guys have any ideas for other things you'd like to see a closer look of, please go ahead and leave a comment down, and we'll definitely add it to our repertoire. I think I like this idea of sort of doing these videos of, you know, more intimate how-tos, sort of adding to our stable of videos, but also sort of in a contrast to sort of the chaos that we put on every Saturday night. And again, I'm not saying this isn't chaos, but it's a different kind of chaos. So we got about 2 minutes. I'm gonna let this go all the way through, because I think the bottom is doing exactly what I thought it was gonna do. Sticking, pulling away, and that dough hook is helping us out. It's stretching it out. And if I turn this down a little bit, you know, right here, you can see what it's doing. It's slapping that dough around, not in a bad way. I mean, it's all consensual in there, but you know, we want to make sure that that's what it looks like. So I'm going to turn that back up, let it go for the last minute here. I'm liking this. I think we timed this. We got our consistency exactly where we want to be. It's going to be tacky, and not in a you know, bell bottoms and a button fly shirt or whatever collar, butterfly collar. That's what I was looking for at a wedding type of tacky, but tacky in the way we like bread to be. And again, this thing is really rocking and rolling, so just be careful not to let this walk off your counter. But I want you just to pay attention. If you can see inside of that bowl, it's clean. Any of that stuff that was set is now clean. Again, there's a little bit of the tackiness down here, but I'm gonna pull this up and we can see. This is what I'm looking for. I'm touching it, but it's not sticking. It is sticking, you know, to what we've got here, but this is it. This is a good, you know, hydration for this dough. That's what I'm looking for, and it's pulling down. I'm gonna get a little bit of, I've got a bowl here, and I'm gonna move you back over here so you can sort of see what's going on over there. We're gonna keep this flour for later, but I've got a big bowl here, and I want to have it because this is gonna rise, right? So I need to have enough room in here to let it rise. And I'm taking just a little bit of cooking spray, which is just, I'm just using this olive oil spray. Well, that light is very, very, whatever. That's what you get. See if I can get it better. There it is, olive oil spray. And I'm just giving a little shaker here. And I want to get this nice and sprayed here. And the reason is because this is a sticky dough. I don't want it to stick to but I'm also going to give my hands a little bit of spray here. And I'm gonna come in here and we're just gonna get this wrangled, hopefully, without getting too much lost here to the stickiness. So this dough, I've found this recipe. It's from Sally's Baking Addiction. It's just the simple sandwich bread. I really like this recipe because, well, it's pretty straightforward. I like the consistent results I've gotten from it. And so I'm showing, let me move this and show you what we're looking at here. So see how I can pull it and it's sticking but not keeping it set. That is the consistency I'm looking for. I would say probably to get us here, we probably are at, instead of the 3 1/4 cups of flour, we're probably at 3 3/4 at least. You might even be at 4. So just, again, play with the dough and let it go. And see, it's not sticking to my hands. Even though I did grease them up, I am that. The other thing to look at it is how shiny this is. So again, it's got shine, it's got reflective to it. It's not a dull, and it's light comparatively to its size. This is gonna make one loaf. And once we get that going, so I've got this, and I'm going to go ahead and we're gonna get this on saran wrap, and we're gonna let this rise. We're gonna let it rise for about an hour. But since it's summer here in the Reno Sparks area, this is gonna probably rise maybe 50 minutes. I don't know, I'm gonna watch it and see if I want it to be doubled in size. So we're gonna let this rise, and when we get back to it, we'll roll it out and see what it looks like. Okay, it's been just about an hour, and you can see that we have definitely doubled in size here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this to the side real quick. And I'm gonna get some of our flour that we had extra, and I'm gonna liberally spread this around here. And the reason I want this to be sort of liberally, because again, remember this dough was it was tacky, but also it has a little but I don't want it to stick. So our next mission here is that we need to get, this is a 9 by 13 pan, and same thing we did before. Before we get started, I'm going to spray the hell out of this. So I'm gonna, make sure you get into these corners. These kind of pans, they don't necessarily get you into the corners all the time. Okay, I'm gonna set that to the side. And then we're gonna take our dough now. We're gonna take it out of here. We're gonna just use our fingertips here. And we're gonna bust these bubbles. And, you know, this dough feels awesome. Again, not sticky, also has light and airy. So we're gonna work it out here, and I'm just going to sort of spread it out. And this is where having that dough is gonna be super helpful to be able to sort of, or I'm sorry, the flour, to make it so it's gonna be workable. And then just for take some on this side, and you know, you can spread it out a little bit or take a little extra that you got here. This is an important step. Shaping is an important step because your dough's been resting, it's airy, but you want it's gonna get a second rise again. So we're getting rid of all the sort of worked air there. But what we also did during that hour is you're gonna get you're getting a little flavor development. If you were to say do this overnight, you would go ahead and get a, you know, you get a little bit of flavor out of it. So I'm looking for an 8 by 15 kind of rectangle here, roughly. I think, you know, the reason is, and I'll show you, you know, it ain't gonna be perfect here, everyone. So that's about what I'm looking for, okay? And then I'm going to just roll it up like this. And you want to make sure that it's the short side. So your 8-inch side, you're gonna make sure it's gonna be that. And you're gonna do that, cut it tightly, tucking your sides in as you go here, okay? And again, this is not gonna need to be perfect at the moment. And you're gonna see why. And as it comes across, so what you're gonna have here is you're gonna have sort of this seam. And now this is the part where I don't always excel, but you know, we do our best. And I'm just pinching. I'm gonna grab that edge, that seam, and I'm gonna, you know, I wanna pull this back and I wanna stuff so that, what you're doing here is you're just shaping this dough to a size and shape with the seam sort of down, so that if the seam side is down, that's gonna fill up with air and settle, and that seam will just go away, okay? So now we're gonna take our, you know, our pan here, well oiled, and you can kind of see that, look, it's about the size we want it to be, okay? So I'm gonna flip that over, get any of this excess flour off. Obviously it's not gonna be too bad, but, and then you're gonna get this in here, seam side down. That's an important thing, because you want the air pressure that is being formed by here. And I'm just sort of pushing it into the corners here to kind of get it a little even. And then once again, you're gonna take for about another, oh, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour. I'm just using some saran wrap that I already used. The only difference here is I don't want this to be super, I'm gonna just give it a little spray of again, cooking oil here. And the reason why is because it's gonna sit, and I'm just draping it over like that, okay? And it's gonna rise in here for another hour, just like this. And that is going to be our last rise. At this point, I would go ahead and get your oven lit, or preheated, sorry, not lit. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Preheated to 350 degrees. Set your rack in there to the bottom or the second to the bottom setting or level. That way, because bread is going to get better airflow. If you do it in the middle too, that's going to be fine. This is going to, you don't want it to the top to burn. So higher up, the higher it is, the heat, you know, heat rises. So we want this to be sort of toward the bottom, and then the heat will get nice and brown. The bottom will get nice and brown from the convection off of the direct contact of the pan, and then the convection air as this rises is going to brown this up really, really nicely. So we're going to just let this kind of rise for, like I said, about an hour again. You don't want it to go to more than about an inch above your rim of your baking pan. If it does, it's going to be too much in terms of its rise, and you might have gone past the proofing, too much proofing. And that just means that you're not going to get an ideal spring back, but you should be fine. So we're just I'm gonna leave this here, and I'm gonna set this up, and we'll see what it looks like in about an hour. Okay, so it's been roughly 50 or so minutes, probably right around 50 minutes. And this is, I'm gonna just turn it here, but this is what you're looking for. See, it's not that much higher off of the rim like we were talking about, okay? So now that that's done, and the second rise is exactly where we want it to be. So we've got it set. So now we're just gonna throw it in the oven, and it's gonna bake for 35 minutes. Once it's done, we'll pull it out, and you're gonna wanna have a rack ready, and we'll put the rack here, and then when it's done, it's gonna cool. And this is gonna be the hardest part for everybody. You need to let it cool completely, because that heat, there's carryover heat when it comes out, and that carryover heat is actually going to continue to cook inside of that bread. And if you were to pull it out and just cut it right open, you're going to release a bunch of steam. You're going to have a weird kind of chewy tooth to your crumb. It's science is what it is, but you got to let it cool completely. You will be rewarded for your patience. The other thing that will happen is when you take it out, you're going to have your crust on the top is going to be warm and crisp. But because of the steam still releasing from the inside, everything softens up, and you get this, you'll just have to see when I pull it out of the oven. But I'm going to check on this after about 20 minutes though, because I want to make sure that the top is not browning too much. And if that happens, you can take aluminum foil and tint the top of it, and that will help reduce the browning on the top. But just check it. If your oven is like mine, maybe it'll like 15 minutes. You're going to want to turn it completely around in your oven so you can get even browning. But yeah, so we're going to throw it in the oven, and we'll pull it out and see what it looks like. Okay, everybody, we're going to pull this out and just look at it real quick. You can kind of see how much it's sprung up, which is good. But I'm going to turn it because you can see that this side is a little bit more brown than the other side. Well, the dogs are having a good time. So we're just gonna have this put back in. Again, I'm gonna go for another 15 minutes. Gus is really excited about things. So this goes shut. We get our timer back on for about 15 more minutes and then we'll go back to work. Okay, that is what we're looking for. Nice and brown, but not overly brown on the top. We're going to take this with the hot pads here, and we're going to take this, and it should easily release. And look at that bottom. That's what we're looking for. That is it. Okay. You're going to leave that be. It's not going to have that hollow bottom that you're going to hear on other bread like the bowls and stuff, because the bread, it's not direct contact. So again, leave this be. It has to sit for until it's completely cooled. Again, is that going to be easy? No, but it is what you need to do. So we're gonna let this sit, and when we cut into this, it's gonna look, I'm not gonna be one of those savages that cuts this in half. I'm gonna cut it from the end and we'll look at the crumb that way. So we're gonna let this cool, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like once it's all cooled. Okay, well, it's been about, I don't know, an hour or so. This is pretty much completely cooled, which is what you want. Again, very soft and pillowy. This is what we want, everyone. So I'm going to cut into this. I should be able to, nope, that's further away. I guess I'll do it here. I'm just going to, I'm going to use this bread knife. So you can just kind of see what we're dealing with here. This is perfect. Oh my God. Perfect. Okay. First of all, you can barely see that crumb, but there you go. Look at that. That is what we're talking about. I want that to be exactly what you get. Look how dense it is. There's no big air pockets like we were talking about. It's a full piece of bread all the way up to the top. It's gonna make amazing sandwiches. Again, here's the end piece for those of you who like that. Again, full piece. we're gonna have a little bit of it plain here. Oops. Okay. It's perfect. This tastes, it's got good flavor. It's better than any kind of store-bought white bread you're gonna get. You got about 4 or 5 days for this. If you keep it in an airtight container, well, not airtight, but you know what I mean. We want to make sure that it is going to be in a bag or something that's going to have most of the air out when you cut it. Once you cut into this bad boy, mold will happen. Eat this fast. If you eat, or put it in the refrigerator. That will help. So, I got a little butter here because I think bread and butter is one of the best combos ever. My grandmother used to eat so much bread and butter. God. But fresh baked bread, butter, what a great combo. So this to me is like why I chose this sandwich bread. I chose it because I wanted to show you guys like that this is not as hard as you think it is. I'm gonna link an actual hand kneading video that will illustrate it better than I ever could. As I said, I'm not good at it. So I'll find one and link it in the description. But this is a 3 hour, 4 hour, time commitment. So make sure you do it in the afternoon. You can bake at night, have it for dinner, or do it on a Saturday. Bake 2 of these. You could for a double up, just make 2 dough balls. That's what I recommend. Don't try and double the recipe. It just doesn't translate as well. I think I've showed you this before, but this is Ken Forkish's book, Flour, Water, Salt, and Yeast. It's got everything you need to know about baking bread. There's chapters on sourdough, there's chapters on all kinds of stuff. So, and pizza dough. It's got a really good pizza dough in there. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this sort of more quote unquote technical close up look at bread and the way I like to do it, and this sandwich bread. Again, this is from Sally's Baking Addiction. It's just the sandwich bread, simple. Again, not very many ingredients. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and really, that's all you need to do to make good bread. So, this will be out next week on the 25th, maybe? Yeah, 25th. So of June. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more of these, please recommend some of the stuff that we've done that you'd like more of a deep dive on. And as we explore this method of how to do this and kind of get better, we'll start putting some more of these out. Hopefully we can do some more of these side dish deep dives and see how it comes out. But until then, we love you so much for stopping by every week. You know, we will sort of try and do more of these again, like I said. But until then, thanks for stopping by. We love you. Remember to be kind and to be loyal and to do something nice for somebody next week. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.